I don't know how dates work. I have no idea. But
You mean like with girls or calendars?
basically both. So February 11th, 2021, we sat down and
Okay.
we recorded our first episode of this show.
Okay.
4 years later, this is episode 208, and our math this time might be correct, whereas it wasn't like 4 episodes ago. This should be the fourth year, so we turn 3 years old. We're starting our fourth year.
I guess. I don't know.
21, 22, 23. Let me count on my fingers. 24. So 21 to 22, 23, 24, 25. No, we're turning 4 this year.
Yes.
Today. Right
Today.
here. I have
Yay.
no clue if February 11th, 2021 was a Thursday or not. But it's been you and me and then some guests along the way. I
Yes.
am Phil Royle. I have been here since day one of this podcast. I've been sitting in this chair, which you can see me on at youtube.com/@thewhatcar. What you couldn't see at that URL was 20 years before that, I've been doing automotive content creation and what did I say? Content creation and journalism. And then you can also see me at thewhatcar.com/store, where I sell you t-shirts, of which I was thinking, we don't have any hoodies on there right now. And I've been cold today. So I started looking to design a hoodie so I could order one of those.
So maybe coming soon.
Maybe coming soon because I'm cold and I have a need for something
All
warm.
right.
So I may be designing a hoodie. It's just you go to do it and then there's like, well, there's 5 different hoodies that you can select from. And I'm like, oh, I just want a hoodie. Just get me a hoodie. So anyway, I can order one of those and then maybe it'll appear at some point in the future on our YouTube channel.
Ed Sanchez, likewise 20 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation. Day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Watt Car co-founder and contributor.
4 years ago, we were on Facebook, and probably that's it. I believe
Maybe at the time Twitter for a while.
I don't think we did it very early. I can't remember. But now we're not on Twitter anymore, or X. I got off that. Anybody who listens to this show for long enough knows I am not an Elon Musk fan. So I try to hold my tongue where I can, but
Enough's enough.
yeah, enough has been enough in this last week. So I didn't close the account. I just left a little marker that said you can find us elsewhere, because the way the rules are on X is if I say we're on Blue Sky, which is where we are now, we're on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook. If I say that,
You'll get banned.
yeah, we get banned.
Oh.
So I just said, find us somewhere else. I was going to say, go where the sky is bluer, but really, I don't know if blue sky's the answer. I mean, I didn't go there before because it didn't seem like the answer.
But it's an alternative.
It's an alternative. It's something else. I can't live with myself if I'm on X right now. So I'm out. And instead, we're at Blue Sky. So it's at thewhatcar.bsky.social. That seems to be our handle.
Okay.
I don't know how that works. It seems to be an outright clone of X and Threads. Oh, we're also on Threads. They all seem to look identical to me. I had all the windows open last week, and I was having a hard time telling the difference between one and the other because they're all completely identical. But there we are. We're on social media. You can find us anywhere. The biggest thing, and I always say this at the end, but the biggest thing that you can do to help us out is to share any of the content online. So while we post on social media, stuff like that, share any of the podcasts, any of the posts that we do on the
Videos.
blog, any of the videos, anything, just share that socially on your own page. And that helps us much better than us posting on our own Facebook page or now Blue Sky or Threads or Instagram, whatever. They don't have the cachet of somebody physically doing like a word of mouth endorsement of us.
Well, I did something on my own YouTube channel.
You did your
This
own
past
word
week.
of mouth.
I don't know why I had the notion to do this, but I did it. I just gave kind of my personal experiences after 5 years and 70,000 miles with my Model 3. So,
What was the conclusion? Because I started to watch it. I gotta tell you, it's like 23 minutes long, I think.
and you started falling asleep, and you
No,
were like,
I got to question 2 or 3 on it. So I was like 10.
until
10
I
plus
started
minutes
defending
in.
Elon, you're like, oh, forget it.
I did. I didn't get that far, but I would have been out at that point. So what was the TLDR?
TLDR, good car, not a perfect car. I still think, by and large, Tesla kind of set the bar for EVs. They're still, I think, the standard to what most EVs are judged for the most part. Um, I'd buy another one. Maybe not only a Tesla. I'd consider, especially with, NACS and J3400, getting more widespread. There are more options now than there used to be. But I've enjoyed it. It's been a good car. I like the driving experience. I like the features, the OTA updates. So there you go. If you want a deeper dive, link in the show notes and you can check it out.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Elon, as I've just said, but it's undeniable that Tesla has built this entire market. That
Yeah.
it is one company, and you could say one person, but
hmm
I don't, don't
It's
like giving
a
companies credit to one person because there are
mhm.
hundreds, if not thousands, of people
Yeah.
that
Well, I
have
mean,
contributed.
technically, Elon wasn't even one of the co-founders of Tesla. I mean, if we're going to
Yes,
be perfectly honest,
but
actually,
he's the
there is
reason
another
that it
person.
exists. He's the reason
Well,
it exists
he's the
today.
money man, and
Yeah,
I mean, he did have a lot of influence
it
on
was
it.
at best a kit car company to
Yeah.
begin with, and now it's a legitimate worldwide dominating automotive manufacturer.
Yeah. I mean, I would say at least as much credit goes to JB Straubel for making Tesla what it is today.
Well,
But that's
I know the guy
yeah.
that built track mode, and I would say that that it's these Teslas are known for like the performance that they do, and
Mhm.
they've really taken off in autocross. People do track days with them. I know the guy that did track, like he
Yeah.
is part of the success in this. There's
hmm
so
hmm
many, there's thousands of people that put
Yeah.
in
It's
really hard
collaborative
work
effort. So
that it's not Elon, but it was his checkbook that got it going
yeah.
and his hiring of certain people and JB Straubel to bring it to his attention that he should even buy
hmm
the company. So there's
hmm
so many things. So I hate giving the credit to
Yeah.
one person, so I won't.
Anyway, but if you're interested, watch the video. It's, kind of very low production value, admittedly, but just kind of straightforward and just off the top of my head. So,
So this episode is going to be a little bit different from what we've done in the past. We've been 4 years ago, we started
mhm.
off, and I believe we went through every news item that was going on that week, and we talked a lot
It was
about new
like an
cars.
hour and a half, or
Oh yeah,
it
first
was
episode was
ridiculous. I
yeah,
think it was like almost like 2 hours or
first
something.
episode was so boring. Don't go back and listen to it. But we talked a lot about new cars, and then over the years, I think we both kind of got bored of just talking about the new cars. New cars, you can
hmm
find that everywhere. Let's do deeper dives, and that's what we've been doing. We've been
hmm
getting off topic on a lot of this stuff recently, but this episode, just the way it seems to fall, is like a step back, hopefully not to the hour and a half, that to our roots of talking about the cars, talking about what's coming,
hmm
what's here. And I guess maybe why this didn't exist 4 years ago is that there weren't that many electric
Yeah.
cars on the market. And here we are, we're about to talk about a whole slew of EVs that are
hmm
here or are coming. And it's amazing the
Yeah.
changes in the last 4 years. What we are about to talk about for the next 30 minutes is who would have thought that
Who would have thunk it?
4 years ago we'd be talking about electric Jeeps, electric Cadillacs, electric Porsches. What else is on the board
Honda,
here?
Land Rover.
Yeah, Honda Land Rover, and then I just noticed that you threw something in at the end that's not about cars. Boo, boo, thumbs
The punch bowl.
down. So, Jeep Wagoneer S.
Yep.
Tell me about this, and then I've got a really dumb question.
Okay, so this is I believe it's going to be the first well, no, technically not the first all electric Jeep in the US. They do have a model they've had on sale in Europe. Oh gosh, I can't even remember the name of it. It's a teeny tiny little model um, that I think they're now selling like a range extended version.
The Avenger?
Avenger, that's right. Um, but this is the first full battery electric Jeep that they're going to sell in the US. Even though it's called the Wagoneer, and the ICE Wagoneers are these big, huge, like suburban Tahoe sized, you know, land yachts. Um, this one's more basically like Grand Cherokee sized. So I don't know why they called it the Wagoneer S. I don't know why they didn't call it the Grand Cherokee with the E and like a cutesy little blue
This was
lightning
my
bolt.
dumb question. You've
Yeah.
already beat me to my dumb question. When I go into a dealership and they say, "Hey, you want to test drive the Wagoneer?"
Uh-huh.
How in the world do I know what they're talking about?
Yeah. So yeah, the naming convention's a little kind of head
And
scratching.
what does the S stand for? And that
I have
what
no idea.
signifies this as an all electric Wagoneer? It
Well, it does look different. It's more
it's smaller. It's got like the
smaller. It's
notch
got a
of the
more
Lyriq.
kind of rake it. The rear end, I don't know if you looked at the pictures and some of the links I gave you, but the rear is really interesting because from the side profile, it looks more kind of rectangular. But if you look more closely, it's all these like buttresses and cladding, and so the rear glass is actually a lot more steep than it looks like from the side.
It's kind of the Lyriq.
Kind of, but it's more complicated because it has this giant like wing that comes out, and there's this big gap between the glass and the wing, and I don't know. So they're trying to do
Oh
some like,
yeah, look at that.
yeah, they're,
Huh.
they're trying to do some visual sleights of hand to make it look more Jeepish, I guess, when it's really almost kind of like a tall wagon, kind of.
These
What's in,
black roof lines are
yeah.
very interesting when you really go and look at it.
Hmm.
Look at like a Mach E,
Hmm.
and it's a lot taller than you think it is because
Hmm.
of the way they do the black line of the roof, and they slope it down to make it look
Hmm.
like a sports coupe. And there's a lot of that that goes on. There's a lot of putting black at the bottom.
Hmm.
There's just so many tricks that if I were a designy type person, I'd be able to tell you about,
Yeah,
but I'm not.
which I think works on the Mach-E because I think it's a really nice looking car.
Yeah.
This I haven't seen one yet in person, so I'm going to withhold judgment until I do. But some of these pictures just, some of the proportions and some of the design choices just look kind of odd. But anyway, long story short, interestingly, a car you might not expect it to share a platform with, but I guess it does, is the new Charger Daytona.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
I was not
So
expecting it to share that of a
yeah.
platform.
So I guess, probably change the control arms and stuff to, make it ride a little bit higher. But yeah, so that's
So you're
it's
saying
platform mate.
600
Mhm.
horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. I assume there's multiple trim levels, that they're not all that.
Uh, I think for now that's it. I mean, they may roll out different performance variants or rear wheel drive only or whatever, but for right now, the introductory model, I believe, is just this one trim.
93.9 kilowatt hour battery, 270 to 303-mile range. I'm assuming those
Hmm.
are not EPA confirmed yet. And according to your little cheat notes here, it got about as good of a review for its ride quality as the VinFast. Maybe a bit better.
Maybe a little better. Yeah. I mean, I left notes to some reviews. The reviews were not like gushing exactly. They were like, it's fine, it's okay. But none of them were like, oh my God, this is a game changer. It's going to change the industry. It's going to revolutionize things. They're like,
To be
they,
fair to Jeep,
yeah,
Jeep has never been known for its ride quality prowess.
yeah,
Jeep's always been you buy a Jeep and you get a Jeep.
yeah.
And so maybe they don't really care so much about,
Well,
even
but
though
I
they
mean, having
should.
having said that, I remember, and granted, this is probably about 10 years ago at this point. It's when I'm not good with the Jeep, you know, alphanumeric acronyms.
Yeah, it's
I think it was
impossible to
the
follow.
WK2 Grand Cherokee, if that means anything. I think that was the designation. When that came out, I went on a trip. This is still my glory days of, you know, being a magazine editor. Um, they sent me on a trip to Colorado, and I was really impressed with its balance of on-road ride and off-road capability. the Grand Cherokee specifically. Um, so they really got that formula down right with that. But going to an entirely new platform, an all EV, a dedicated, I think this is the STLA large chassis or whatever. So I think they're, and plus sharing it with effectively a passenger car. I think they're kind of like, how do we do both of these? And it seems like maybe it was a compromise kind of for both cars. Um, because the reviews on the Charger Daytona haven't been exactly gushing either. Um, so I don't know. I don't mean to like disparage or sandbag. I've not driven either vehicle. Um, but the consensus I'm hearing from a lot of them is like, if this would have come out 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been like, oh my, this is incredible. This is game changing. But that the industry has kind of moved on. Um, whether you're talking like Tesla or Lucid or Rivian or whoever. So to the point where it's like, oh, it's okay, but it's not like game changing. So,
I'm confused by the naming convention. I'm confused by the pricing convention. So this
mhm,
is $70,795 according to Jeep's
mhm,
website. So the Wagoneer,
mhm,
regular Wagoneer, 62,945. So this is $7,000, nearly $8,000 more
mhm.
than the Wagoneer. The Wagoneer is ICE, but bigger. So
Bigger. Yeah.
7,000 cheaper and much bigger. So you go and you put the two Wagoneers next to each other and you're like, hey, do you like this? Well, if you like this, but you want less, then you can pay more and get
And get
this
less.
and get less for the Wagoneer S.
Yeah.
So the Grand Cherokee is base model of Grand Cherokee is $36,500. You want the
Hmm.
Grand Cherokee 4xe, it's 60,500. Huge jump in
Hmm.
that price
Hmm.
from 36,000 up to 60,000 for the 4xe. But this is probably more comparable in sizing. So why isn't this the Grand Cherokee instead of Grand Cherokee 4xe? Why isn't this the Grand Cherokee E or SE or something? And then it's a jump from 60,500 to 70,800. It's just a $10,000 jump in.
Yeah. The branding and positioning is a little confusing on this.
Well, I guess it's a $10,000 jump in the other one too. I I'm confused by all of it. It's
Yeah.
like they picked the wrong. They hitched their
The
E to
Wagoneer
the
to the
wrong
wrong
Wagoneer.
wagon. Hitched to the wrong Wagoneer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Anyway, I remember, being a child of the 80s and 90s. I remember when the Wagoneer was just a Cherokee with goofy headlights. I don't know if you remember that model, but um,
no, I wish him
anyway,
the best with this. I do.
yeah,
I totally
we'll
wish him
see.
the best. I'm just confused by it. What I'm not confused by is the Lyriq-V. And what is the deal? It's just faster Lyriq?
Yeah, just more powerful. Um, now, I mean, for what it's worth, they're claiming it's the quickest production vehicle in the brand's history. Um, quickest, not fastest. So 0 to 60, they're claiming 3.3 seconds. 615 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque. I don't know if they announced a top speed for this. I think that would probably be the CT5V. I think it's probably like 180, 190 something. I don't know.
I have a
Um,
question about that.
yes. Anyway, 102 kilowatt hour battery, same as the other models. So it's a little bit, you do sacrifice a little bit of range for the increased performance. So I guess this thing is, they're claiming a 285-mile range versus 307 on the standard dual motor. But anyway, so yeah, the V series goes electric. So I guess
So
that's the
I
headline here.
I was like, what did the other V's cost? And there's the Escalade V for 160,000. There's
Yeah.
the Lyriq V for 78,600.
Hmm.
Then there's the CT5 V series and the CT4 V series. The V series, I haven't kept up with this. The V series, this is the same thing as not a V, right? This is like the M, like how BMW had the M's, but they weren't M's, they were M.
Well, on the CT5, it depends. If it's a V6, then it's maybe a V series, and if it's a V, it's the supercharged V8.
Because on their website, you've got Escalade V, Lyriq-V, CT5 V series, CT4 V series. Which tells me but it's all under the V series thing. Maybe I'm just mixed
I
up.
don't
And
know.
but anyway, the CT4 V series, if that's fast, that's 47,000. I mean, it's ICE. CT5 V series is also ICE at 57,000. So this is
Okay, I think that seems
20,000 more
different because I
expensive.
think the CT5V, like the legit V, I want to say is closer to like 80.
I wonder if they're selling them anymore. I wonder if the
Maybe
only
not.
two
I don't know.
legit Vs, if this one is
Oh,
a
the
legit
Escalade and
V,
the
are the
Lyriq now.
Escalade and the Lyric
Yeah,
at this point. That
maybe.
was where I got confused.
Yeah.
Because when you put V series, it's like a GT line. It's like it's where you just get to bolt on stuff.
M Sport or
Yeah, the M Sport, that was what I was thinking
yeah.
of, where you could get, because I shopped for a 318 Ti years
Hmm.
ago, and that was like the M Sport, the 318 Ti M Sport that had all of
Hmm.
the body cladding and I believe maybe the seats and some
Hmm.
other stuff of the M, but it still had a 1.8 liter
Four
four
cylinder.
cylinder in it. It was
Yeah.
not fast. I mean, it had a manual transmission, but I don't know. I drove it and was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was going to trade in my Miata and get that.
I
And
know. I think for its class, bang for the buck, this sounds like a pretty good deal. I mean, that level of performance for that price is pretty good, I think.
yeah, I see lyrics everywhere here. They are
Yeah, they're one of
super
Cadillac's
common.
better selling models now, from what I've heard. So
I mean, I sent you a picture the other week of like two in a row. Just
yeah,
like I was making a right, and there were just two right after I said to you, lyrics are everywhere in my neighborhood, and then there's like two of them, like almost
yeah.
identical, right next to each other. I'm like, here you go. It's like Tesla all over again with these things. But I live in a strange area. I live in an area where everybody had Teslas, and then as
Hmm.
soon as there was competition, everybody buys the competition. So they must lease them or whatever, or
Yeah,
flip
maybe
them pretty
leases
quick.
or maybe they're offended by Elon, as many
I don't
people are.
know, because then like a bunch of Hummers have come into my neighborhood, like the sedan, the wagon for the SUV version. A
Yeah.
bunch of people have got those, and now there's actually a little street where there's the guy with his Hummer, and the guy next to him just picked up his Cybertruck, and so there's a street that's like all
Yeah.
Hummers and Cybertrucks, and I don't know.
Well, if you want to save the planet, I don't know if the Hummer's the best vehicle to do it, but anyway.
I don't think any of those are the best vehicle to do it.
Anyway, moving on.
Sports cars.
Sports cars. Porsche Cayman EV. This is from Auto Express. Um, so this is, I mean, for a while it seemed like happening, not happening, maybe yes. It looks like this is pretty official. Um, so yeah, anyway, looks pretty beefy. At least the picture I saw. I mean, to me at least, and I don't know if it's like camera angle and like perspective, but it looked like the rear wheels and tires were quite a bit bigger than the front. So
The
not
rears do look
uncommon.
huge. The rears
Yeah,
look huge on this.
yeah, not uncommon with, more performance oriented models to have like a staggered tire setup. Um, but clearly, performance oriented. Um, now again, without official specs, we don't know.
Yeah, there's like no specs as far as I'm
Yeah, but
aware on this.
the description in the article says it's physically larger than the current, what they call it, the 718 series, which would include both the Boxer and the Cayman, I guess. Cayman being the hardtop, Boxer being the convertible.
So the wide rear tires lead me to wonder. So Porsche has always been more rear biased
Hmm.
with its weight distribution.
Hmm.
Just, I mean, on the
Hmm.
there've been some front engine Porsches, but just in general with
Yeah,
these
but
or
even the front
mid-engine.
engine ones, at least the 928 and the 944 had a rear transaxle.
Yeah. So
So yeah, to your
they've
point. Yeah.
always kind of been more rear biased in their
Hmm.
performance
Hmm.
than your average bear. Um, so so it makes me wonder what are they going to stack everything in the back? The tires being huge in the back and skinnier in
Hmm.
the front lead me to believe maybe along those lines
Hmm.
that they're doing that with this as well. They're stacking the weight to the back. Are we going to have more of the electronics in the back than in the front?
Mm,
Are they going to set the
possibly. Yeah.
motor like, are they going to go after that feel? Because they could set, I'm sure they could
Hmm.
cheat the front. If it's going to be all wheel drive, I'm sure they could cheat the front motor backward a little bit
Hmm.
more than others might do.
Hmm.
and move the weight around so it gets that Porsche feeling. One of
Hmm.
the weirdest things, I've driven Porsches before,
Hmm.
but I'd never, done canyon roads and whatnot, driven them on the street and autocrossed them, and that was fun. But I never really got the full dynamic of one until I went and did the Porsche GT3 Cup school
Hmm.
at what was that, Barber
Skip Barber.
Motorsports?
Yeah.
No, not Skip. It was at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama, and so I
Oh.
was there. It was like 3 day, super expensive thing,
Hmm.
and we drove Porsche turbos and GT3 Cup cars, sequential transmissions, and
Hmm.
drivers in the passenger seat. It was awesome, but there was definitely a different way of driving those cars. And I
Hmm.
can see where when you get good at it or you enjoy that, that's what you want from the next generation
Hmm.
of those cars. And if they took that away, that feeling away with the EVs, I could see there being a lot more pushback from the enthusiasts that are used to that and want that.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily just the interior accoutrement.
Hmm.
It is and the exterior styling. It
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
actually how the car handles as
Hmm.
you trail brake into a turn, as you go to get on the gas, things
Hmm.
like that. So I'm wondering how much of that they're trying to stay true to, and I'm guessing a lot, based on just how skinny the front tires are and how big the rear.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big concerns, at least with some people with Porsche kind of transitioning to more electric drivetrains, is how much of that essence is going to be retained, that feel, kind of the signature Porsche driving experience. Um, so yeah, I'm sure they've paid very close attention to that and trying to maintain that and accentuate it. So, um, but yeah, we don't know if this is going to be all-wheel drive or rear drive. I think it's probably going to be all-wheel drive. They may do a rear drive only variant. I mean, I don't know. We just don't know much yet, but we know they're testing it. I'm guessing probably model year 27 for this. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we might see it at car shows this year,
Yeah, maybe.
and I mean, there because that the link in the show notes, it's not
Hmm.
in spy camouflage or anything. I mean,
Hmm.
it looks a little rough, but it also looks largely done.
Yeah. No, I mean, so this could be closer to production than we think, but yeah, it's coming.
Hmm.
Whether you like it or not.
So Honda planning a sub $30,000 EV. And so I did what I've done all in preparation for this show. I just went to Honda's website. It's like, what can you buy for 30,000? You can buy a Civic, you can buy
Hmm.
an HRV, and you can't really buy a CRV. Those
No.
start at
Yeah.
30,100. So that they're
And
just
probably
split.
even Accords are probably pushing that even for the kind of
Yeah,
lower trim
I
model, I'm
I've already
guessing.
gone off that page. But
Anyway.
but it let me see if I can find that. Civics 24, 28, 30, Accord 28, 3. So yes,
Okay.
you get a
So
base model
little
Accord.
under 30, yeah.
So do you think the $30,000 EV, because I don't think we know anything more than
Hmm.
when did they say this? Who said this?
Electric, but they cited Nikkei News, which is a Japanese news outlet, but it was paywalled, so
So
I'm
we're
just
we're
going,
reporting that they're
yeah.
reporting that they think that their translation of this other website says that Honda is planning for a sub $30,000 EV. Do you think
Yeah, reliable sources.
do you think it's a Civic? Do you think it's somewhere between a Civic and Accord? Or do you think it's basically an HRV with some batteries chucked underneath it? Basically, a small prologue is what
Uh, my guess is it would be kind of it, probably good chance it's a crossover-ish kind of. So to your point, HRV sized, maybe. Um, maybe slightly bigger than like a Chevy Bolt, but um,
30,000 is pretty ambitious.
yeah, it's achievable potentially.
I think it's achievable
I think,
outside of
well,
America.
I mean, I think that's what the market wants, but no, like very few companies are actually making it, you know?
Because the problem when you get down to that price, 30 grand, you gotta
Hmm.
you gotta give up something. And the thing you give up is range.
Yeah.
That's the expensive part. Buying the range
Yeah,
is the
battery, yeah.
expensive part.
Even though battery costs are coming down, but even still, I mean, to your point, but
It's 50 grand just under for the prologue right now. So they're looking to cut 30 to 20,000 off of that. I mean, where does so you save a little bit of money in the packaging
Hmm.
because, everything's smaller and whatever. You can't stuff as much battery in there. So instead of the Prologue's got about 300-mile range.
Hmm.
So if you as soon as you start cutting it down, you cut battery down.
Hmm.
So now your 300-mile range might be 220 miles,
Hmm.
which you would say that's fine because that's what your car gets.
Yeah.
But a lot of the reviews of the I'll swat brands here of the ID Buzz. Well, I
Hmm.
say a lot. One of the reviews that I watched was TFL EV or
Yeah.
whatever their channel
Hmm.
is, and they went and they drove the ID Buzz
Hmm.
in snow, driving it home from Boston or
Hmm.
whatever it was.
And the range just went.
They had like basically no range.
Hmm.
It went
Oh,
from
and plus
like
they were relying on Electrify America
which
stations.
weren't working, and so there was a whole
Yeah.
it was a whole comedy of errors that went on, but it was supposed to get like 220 miles of range, something like that. But
Hmm.
it's not very efficient because it's a brick, which no SUV is going
Hmm.
to be super efficient because they're bricks.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then it was cold and it was down to something like 110 miles or something
Oof.
is what their effective range was,
Hmm.
which when you're driving around town, great. 110 miles
Yeah, no
around,
problem. Yeah.
that's around town, that's fine. But if you wanted to go anywhere,
Yeah.
like beyond the corner store, you're out of luck. So I kind of
Yeah.
wonder with this,
Well,
you
I
get a
mean,
$30,000 EV. Oh, well, most people don't drive anywhere. Well, I don't think most people want to spend $30,000 on a car that can only do round town trips.
we'll see. I mean, we don't know the specs. They haven't announced range.
Oh, I'm here to judge beforehand.
Well, I keep thinking of the Chevy Bolt, which supposedly a new version's coming soon, after an outcry from owners after GM said they were going to cancel it. Um, again, it's the when the Bolt first came out, the styling was very kind of awkward, I guess, for lack of a better term. And then they came out the EUV, which was a little bit longer, which I think helped with the proportions a little bit, um, made it a little less awkward. Um, and it had a fairly competitive range, and a little below 30 grand. So I think if that's what they're benchmarking, I mean, I think there'd be a market for that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
just
so.
me.
Sure, why not? Maybe it's not for me.
Well, like I said, till we know more, until we see, a prototype or specs. I mean,
So
but
so was
I'll give, excuse me, I'll give Honda credit for, it seems like taking EVs a little more seriously than some other Japanese companies. Um, I
it certainly
know
seems
you
more
kind of
positive.
think like Nissan has a little more of an edge, but I would almost say, based on some of the activity and development I've seen Honda doing, I think they're almost probably the same point, if not maybe a little ahead of Nissan at this point. So, I mean, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't. There's no rumors or anything of whether this is in house or anything. There's no
I'm pretty
details.
well. I mean, they're saying it's part of the Zero series, which is in
Oh,
house.
okay, yeah.
So I'm assuming this is an in-house effort. I don't think it's going to be like a decontented Prologue, which is a Blazer
So
or
the Zero
Equinox or
series,
whatever.
the Zero series sedan that looks like the Handyvac or a
Hmm.
Lamborghini, depending on which angle you're standing at.
Yeah.
So I saw somebody posted on one of the social medias of
Hmm.
they just recycled this from like the early 2000s and they showed the model
Hmm.
and there was a concept car that looked almost identical. And
Yeah.
one of the comments on there was they just recycled this from like it was like I don't remember the exact
Early
date, but it was like
2000s or
no,
something.
there was one from like 1983 or 84. It was like
Oh,
early
geez.
80s. And it was the same concept as this. There is almost no difference. They have been recycling this concept for 40 years. It's impressive. So if it finally comes to fruition, this will kind of be
Back to
like
the
as
Future.
well, it'll kind of be like as long as didn't they have a rear drive Corvette in the like early 70s or something that they brought as a concept to somewhere? They at least designed one because one existed.
It was
And
it was a prototype. I don't know if they ever did like I think they did a show car.
yeah, I want to say they
One of the
did a show
mock,
car.
one of the Mako sh Sharks, or I don't know.
Yeah. That from a
But it
long
never
time
went to
ago.
production. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the time between then and actually hitting production, this is going to
like
be like
50
that.
years.
Yeah, it's going to be like that with this model.
Yeah.
Is he's the guy who sketched it originally is like dead and gone
Oh,
for decades.
Zorarkis Duntov, yeah.
So yeah, well, no, I was talking
Well,
about
yeah,
with the
I mean,
Honda.
interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, I want to go off in the weeds again, but Duntov wanted to do a mid-engine Corvette from like way early on. So, I mean, the I guess the keepers of the Corvette flame kind of, they finally brought it to market. So maybe he's smiling down from the great garage in the sky. So anyway, all right. So a model that we may not see as a full EV for a little while to come, the Defender.
Now this, ironically,
Yeah.
and I did not plan it this way, is the the exact argument I was just giving with Honda
Hmm.
and electrifying or electric. I hate the word electrifying an HRV,
Hmm.
because that makes it sound like a plug-in. And if you make it electric, whatever,
Hmm.
an electric version of an HRV, that you
Batteryification.
the batteryification that that you make something smaller or whatever, you're dealing with a
Hmm.
smaller size, you can't get the range,
Hmm.
and what's the point? And is that what Land Rover's just said with the Defender?
So, according, this is from Autocar. I guess they talked to like one of the engineers, and they said the issue they were having is finding space in basically the current chassis, which was optimized for ICE, basically for internal combustion, trying to adapt that to an EV powertrain and fitting a big enough battery to give it, the range and performance they were kind of targeting. So it sounded to me like, if we're going to do this right, we kind of got to start from a clean sheet. So, um, so yeah, I think a full battery electric Defender is probably going to wait till the next generation. I guess currently they do have a plug-in hybrid model, um, which, obviously has a smaller battery pack, but for a full-fledged battery electric Defender, that's probably still a few years out.
They're in a bit of a uh, it's problematic for them because their stuff, it's like Jeep.
Hmm.
It's like the G Wagon with Mercedes.
Hmm.
When you think of Land Rover, you think of off-roading prowess. You
Hmm.
think of something that can perform, and I imagine they think of that too, and they probably are like, if we make it, it's got to be able to do certain things.
Hmm.
So it's one thing to throw it on a like so Tesla went and they made the Cybertruck and they did what they do and they've ended up with something that can go off-road but is not really fantastically great at it.
Hmm.
And Land Rover couldn't necessarily do that. They
Hmm.
need something even though 99.9% of these things go to the mall, if
Hmm.
those exist anymore. That that they've still got to be able to
Hmm.
go off-road. They've
Hmm.
still got to be
Well,
capable.
especially the Defender, because that's kind of like that's basically Land Rover's Wrangler, effectively.
Yeah.
So,
So they can't just go and say, "Oh, well, here's a skateboard, a generic skateboard, and
like
underpinnings," and
like
we'll
Jeep
just
did, ironically.
yeah. So it makes me wonder when they look at it, they go, "Okay, well, it's got to have this, it's got to have this, it's got to have this
Hmm.
to go off-roading to meet our requirements."
Hmm.
And if we do all those things, we're now left with a 60 kilowatt hour battery, and
Hmm.
it's shaped like a brick, and it just is
That'll
going to
give
be
you
able to
like a
go.
150-mile
Yeah,
range.
that
Yeah.
there's no point. Nobody's going to spend
Hmm.
more, once again, spend more to get less,
Hmm.
like with the Jeep Wagoneer S issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't blame him. Plus, I think the market is still by and large kind of ambivalent about EVs. I mean, clearly the Tesla Model Y struck a chord. It's a fantastically popular, high selling model, but not many other brands or models have been able to kind of really, you know, catch on with consumers. So I could understand why they're kind of holding back because it's like, you know what, if we're only going to have, maybe globally like 10,000 sales, why let's just wait till the next generation.
And
So, I get it.
I don't
Yeah.
know how their sales distribute around the world, but I'm guessing America
Hmm.
is not their number one market. I'm guessing it's Europe.
Europe or
And
China, even though that's changing rapidly. But
so it
yeah.
may be that a lower range is fine. And it may be, I
Hmm.
wonder when, because there are other, while America's stepping back on all of its requirements,
Hmm.
the EU isn't.
Hmm.
These other
Hmm.
countries are not stepping back on their environmental
Requirements. Yeah.
commitments that they've made. So it makes me wonder, are we going to lose brands like this in America? Because are they going to go, well, okay, we've got to go electric for the bulk, 80%, whatever the
For
number is,
globally, yeah.
80% of our sales are outside of America. We're just going to have to give up on America and not ship
Either, well, I think it's going to be either that or America's going to get basically the leftovers, going to get the basically the previous generation models that still have a nice powertrain. Kind of like what's happening somewhat right now with the Porsche Macan. Like, they're not selling the internal combustion model in Europe anymore, but you can still get it in the U.S. Now, part of that has to do with supposedly like the electronics architecture and cybersecurity and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, long story short, they're still selling it here. They're not selling it in Europe anymore. So,
we
um,
could end up with some weirdness that goes on
yeah.
because of what's taking place in America right now. In 5 years' time, I
Hmm.
wouldn't be surprised if we don't see something like we're we don't have Land Rover in America,
Hmm. Well,
that we don't
possibly.
have
Yeah.
Jag in America
Well,
because
you
they've got to
may not have
commit.
Jag anywhere.
Yes, there's that. But where these companies that don't necessarily have huge budgets to keep
Hmm.
production lines going go, well,
Hmm.
you know what? America's a tiny portion of our market. The rest of the world wants EVs. They're requiring us to go to EVs. So
Hmm.
we're just going to go EV, and America doesn't want the smaller distance EVs. The rest of the world is happy with those. So here you go,
Hmm.
America. You now enjoy your Charger Daytona hybrids,
Hmm.
or version thereof, whatever it was that they're doing, and your Ram Charger. Enjoy those, and we don't want a part of that.
Hmm.
We'll be over here, and when you have your switch over,
Yeah.
we'll talk.
Yeah. It's who knows. I think this is kind of almost a whole other episode, but I think the US does risk kind of becoming an island, so to speak, in terms of models and requirements and
Well,
just because of,
go into that. We got a couple minutes. Go into that.
well,
Trump's
just
come in,
yeah.
and this is not really car stuff now. This is what it kind of is. Uh, he's come in and he said, "Okay, we're going to backpedal on all of the funds,
Hmm.
the NEVI funds, the God, what was the IRA,
IRA, Inflation
the
Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction Act? That we're going to pull back on as much as we can, but can he?
So I actually found, and I just kind of stumbled across this, but it actually had one of the best explanations I've read yet about what Trump can and can't do. Like he famously came in day one, had a whole stack of, his famous, bifold, executive orders with the Sharpie. And he had like a whole desk full of them. He's like, I'm banning this, I'm banning that. We're gonna drill, baby drill. It's gonna be fantastic. Um, blah, blah, blah. Thinking he could just unilaterally do this by executive order. The reality is it's not quite that simple. So for NEVI and for the Inflation Reduction Act, that was actually passed by Congress. So what he
Bipartisan as
can,
well. I looked it up. I mean, it
yeah,
wasn't overwhelming, but it was something like
no, but it
13.
was,
It was
yeah,
like
I
13
mean,
Republicans flopped, and back to the Democrats, and
well,
like
because
six
some red states
Democrats.
got some,
Yeah,
some
but
goodies out of it,
then there was like 6 or 7 Democrats that flopped and went to the other
went
side.
the other way.
So
So
it wasn't overwhelming in either. It wasn't overwhelmingly
yeah, yeah.
bipartisan, but at the same time, there were Democrats that didn't like it, there were Republicans that didn't like it, and it got passed.
Hmm. So basically, what he can do is something that's called like a reconciliation bill. So basically, but that still has to go through Congress. And what they can do is effectively kind of revise past budgets for things. So they can kind of shift around money. So funds that maybe were previously allocated to NEVI or IRA or any kind of like green energy, whatever, they can kind of reallocate those toward, I don't know, oil exploration or something else. So,
Wouldn't that be ironic?
oh, imagine that under
Okay,
Trump administration.
we're going to take the money that was intended to go to EV charging infrastructure, and we're going to reallocate that to drilling for oil.
Well, but I mean, it's a whole new world. But anyway, um,
I
but
kind of like the irony of that.
regardless, it would take some congressional action to undo, the IRA and some of the NEVI stuff, is my understanding of it. So you can't just unilaterally do, a Sharpie
Well,
order
he's
and like,
he's probably unilaterally sharpied his way there, but it's whether or not it's an enforceable
well, that's the thing.
Sharpie.
I mean, he can say it, but whether it's enforceable, but like I said, I mean, granted, it's a razor thin majority, but there is a majority in Congress and in the House and the Senate right now. So if it's just a simple majority to kind of, claw back or kind of reallocate some of these funds, I mean, it could be done. So it just depends on if there's enough political will on part of the Republicans and Trump to basically undo some of these already allocated funds.
The irony
Some
of
of
that,
which,
though,
like I said, benefited red states. So,
and the Congress people from those red states
mhm,
in certain cases voted for it. So they would
voted for
then,
it and did the ribbon cutting for like, oh, we're going to do this, blah,
yeah,
blah,
and
jobs, jobs, jobs. And
through all of that,
yeah.
there's over 300,000 jobs that have been created in red states
Hmm.
for alternative fuel, EV manufacturing,
Batteries.
or
Yeah.
related.
Hmm.
So to dial it back, um, in today's world, like a politician, well, I mean, forever, a politician flip flopping is not out of the
Hmm.
ordinary, but this
Hmm.
would be quite an extraordinary flip flop to me
Hmm.
to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to sign this and this is what I think. And now I'm going to flop completely on it.
Hmm.
And yeah, we brought in jobs to my state, but I'm against this now. I've
Yeah. It's going to
noticed
be
that
interesting how this plays out.
there have been a number of Congress people that have actually had the guts to say no in the last week
Hmm.
to certain things and vote against certain Trump backed things.
Hmm.
And so I've got my hopes up that this doesn't necessarily get reallocated, or if the funds are reallocated, that they're reallocated appropriately. Like
We
maybe
can hope,
they
but
maybe they encourage, like if they encourage, and I don't know whatever, but if they encourage more plugins
mhm.
versus full EV and they manage to move money around, so that's what's encouraged. I can't say I'm against more
No.
plugins. So especially with things like if that keeps companies like, Land Rover in it,
Hmm.
and we've got benefits for those things, coming in. Like I can't say I'm against.
Yeah.
I don't think what we've got is necessarily oh, this was the right answer. I
Hmm.
think there are other answers that can also be as right as the answer that they came
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still, I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, it seems like even though it's only been 2 weeks, it feels like 6 months already. But yeah. I mean, a lot of this is still TBD, whether it's legal challenges or congressional action or whatever. So
Yeah, I hate to tell
yeah.
you this, but it's not been 2 weeks yet.
Oh gosh. Can't wait.
Time is both flying and dragging.
Yes. And on that note, I think we'll wrap it up here, huh?
Yeah, I will run out of here, but before I do, let me say that everything will be in the show notes, but more importantly, shirts will be at thewhatcar.com/store. Shirts, water bottle, maybe a sweater to come, definitely a
Maybe a
hat.
hoodie.
Is that there? Yep, maybe a hoodie. It depends on how hip
How
and
cold you get?
with it I want to be. Yeah, how cold am I? It depends. You'll be able to tell if I'm really cold when I make the product, it will be a hoodie. And if I'm not quite as cold, then it'll just be a sweater. Uh, I've already lost myself. We got hello@thewalker.com if you want to email us, but don't email us. Just go onto YouTube and leave a comment on one of the videos. It's youtube.com/at the walk car. You can watch our smiling faces there. You can, like I said, in the show notes, there'll be links, and then you can see Ed's smiling face on his YouTube channel, which I don't know what it is, like Edward Sanchez.
Yeah, but it's Edward Sanchez like 9741 or I don't know.
Wait, you're not the only Edward Sanchez out there?
No, I guess not. So I don't know.
Eh,
Click on the link, and if you click around to other videos, you'll It's usually like power stations. I think I got a couple on my Regal wagon if you're into
Yeah,
that.
if you're interested in power stations, EVs, or 1983 Buick Regal wagons,
There you go.
this is the one-stop shop. TheOneCar.com/advertise for anybody, any big company that's looking to come in and advertise. I don't even know who we've talked about
Land
this
Rover?
week. Land Rover. Sure. Why not? They need to advertise and let people know that they are here to stay,
Yes.
even if they can't produce an EV. So I don't know why they'd advertise on this channel. I'm done. How about we come back in a week and do it all
Yes.
over again?
And we'll have more, who knows what. Things are moving so fast, it's hard to keep
Yeah.
up.